Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the podcast where two guys get together to talk all about the sport of triathlon. It is, of course, Talking Triathlon, and my name is Tim Ford, and I'm joined by James Bale. Jimbo, welcome back. How you going, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Bit tired, and I've got a cold. So I'm a bit throatier than I normally am. But
So,
other than that, mate,
so standard, because I swear to God, you're more often sick with a cold and tired than you are full of energy and
than I
completely
are
healthy.
anything else. Yeah, absolutely. It's been a very long couple of days, but I'm back in time to record the podcast, which is, all I care about, really,
Yeah, I
in
know, because you
life.
got to sit down for this hour-long chat we're about to have about fuck knows this week. No, that is not true. I sat down with Henri Schoeman, Olympic bronze medalist, Commonwealth Games gold medalist, athlete, friend of mine as well, friend of ours, yesterday. Did an interview, so we'll be dropping that in later. But yeah, it is good, mate. We are also you did a little mini interview with Kevin McKinnon from Triathlon Magazine Canada, which we're going to use in next week's episode because of the news that came out last week about what actually happened with the Malibu Triathlon. But I think we'll save that chat
Yeah,
because
we'll
we
put that in our news episode next week. And
yeah.
for anyone who's looking forward to that, I absolutely butchered the name of the magazine that Kevin works for as the intro to that. So I was quite embarrassed,
Does
but
it is it
save
still
that for
called
next
is
week.
it still called Triathlon Magazine Canada or is it changed now?
No,
Triathlon Mag.
it's just called Triathlon Magazine now.
So we got Triathlon
But
Magazine, Triathlete Magazine. Fucking
yeah,
hell.
yeah.
This sport,
So
man. It's the best.
yeah, because I introduced, hang on a second, I'll just double check this. Because
Look at he's checking his sources.
I introduced him as Kevin McKinnon, founding publisher of Triathlete Magazine Canada, and he was like, "It's Triathlon Magazine Canada, and it's not called Triathlon Magazine Canada anymore. It's just called Triathlon Magazine." And I was like, "Oh,
Oh
sorry about
well,
that, Kevin."
here we
And
are.
then when we started the conversation again, I called it Triathlon Magazine Canada again, but he didn't bat an eyelid.
Now,
So
the more
I'm
the
just so
more
used to it.
the more important question, James, is did you announce him as the inaugural winner of the former Talking Triathlon Award? Now well, back then it was the MX Endurance Podcast Award for Triathlon Media Personality of the Year. Remembering he was the first ever recipient of that award. Now I'm assuming you told him about this because very prestigious award.
No, I completely forgot. But he's probably received that in the post at
Yeah.
some point and got it pinned up on his wall or on his mantelpiece or something. He's probably like, next to his wedding pictures or something. It's that kind of level, isn't it?
Oh, mate, exactly. The fact that it is that photo of you in a see-through white tri-suit holding it, that is probably the reason it is such a prestigious award. But no, that'll be next week. The other good thing, I don't know if this is part, I don't know. They're announcing the PTO schedule and everything next week. So it's interesting. Again, I've heard a few of
Yeah,
the
that'd
names.
be good. Hopefully that'll be in time for us to record the episode. So, we don't
Definitely
want the curse of the podcast to strike.
Tuesday.
So that's very good. So next week's episode will be heavy news, interesting news. And then we've got some other interviews lined up. We've got Summer Rappaport/Cook coming on. We've got Ben Canute's agreed to come on in the next few weeks. So we've
Cool.
got some big names beginning to come onto the podcast.
No, it'll be good. Like I said, we're going to get back into that rhythm and things are starting to
The
heat up.
juggernaut rolls on, mate.
Well, from what I hear, it's not that long until that first PTO race is coming. Maybe, in like a month. Who knows? We'll find out. All will be revealed on Tuesday. Nothing like giving the broader world a month's notice to prepare for this
Give the people
revolutionary
what they want. Are you not
race.
entertained, Tim? Are you not entertained?
I'm actually really not at the moment, to be honest. I'm not. But again, I think we'll retain that conversation for the bonus episode we're going to do next week for our patrons, which you can be one of if you go to patreon.com/talking triathlon. The rumor mill is our bonus podcast where we get to be a bit more loosey goosey with the things that we do and don't talk about on the podcast. But that's going to come next week. And again, to those people who already support us, thank you, Jimbo. We will drop in the interview with Henri Schoeman, and then we will come back afterwards and have a little chat. Well, this week I am joined by a triathlete who does not need much of an introduction, especially if you were watching Bahrain 70.3 last year, where he finally seemed to crack the middle distance code with a blistering fast time. It is Olympic bronze medalist, South African triathlete Henri Schoeman. Henri, how you going, mate?
Hey Tim, yeah, good, good. How are you doing?
Uh, I was just telling you, I rode for the first time ever in my life. I rode to the office today, and I misjudged the distance by a quite a significant amount, and it has turned out to be a day that I've done a lot more riding than I anticipated in extremely humid weather, and again running sort of late, knowing that I had to do this. So I'm a little bit exhausted, to be honest, mate. But uh, obviously, it's always
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with spending couple more hours on the bike. I think it's all a good day's work, right?
exactly. That's it. I think I was meant to do. I think I had a 2.5 hour ride on today's program, and I've ended up doing about 5 hours. So just 100% extra, but
It's all you need.
Well, look, as I sort of was saying to you before, this is not an interview. This is just a chat. But I mean, there's so many things I do want to talk to you about because I'm very curious to get your perspective because even though you are not an old man, you have been through quite a period in the history of the sport. Like, we think back to where you really sort of, not shocked the world, but made that incredible performance. We saw the bronze medal in Rio, which I can't believe is like about to be 2 Olympics ago extremely soon. And then we've seen you have, success at World Triathlon Championship, winning the grand final. And just, a career that has seen so much, change. We've seen the PTO come in and things like that. But like I am curious because I feel like in the last few years in COVID and everything, and a lot has changed in the sport. And what's sort of been your observations about how the sport has changed over the last 8 or so years or 10 years or whatever?
Yeah, I came into the sport at a quite an interesting time. It was where maybe one, two, maybe three athletes were like dominating the Olympic sport, and that was the Brownlees and Gomez. And the racing was always very similar. It was always kind of like aggressive swimming, getting out, getting a breakaway on the bike, and being part of that as being a strong swimmer and also new to the sport. Like it was a good way to be introduced to the sport. Racing in the pointy end of the sport, and that gave me a lot of experience. And I used that over the years that I've done in triathlon, and obviously it's helped me get to Olympic medal, Commonwealth gold,
Of course,
a
man.
few wins and medals down the line. So I mean, yeah, I mean it was interesting, but looking back at that time compared to now, whereas I still remember Javier was still like mixing it up a little bit with the middle distance, and we're like, wow, can he even do that? And I was like, wow, he's doing that and coming back to the short course. I was like, wow, that's crazy. Now you're just getting athletes flying between 70.3, sometimes Ironman, and then coming back to Super League racing. So, I mean, the world of triathlon has just changed so much in one decade. And, to be part of that and, experimenting myself with Super League, Olympic distance, and middle distance, like it's doable. You just have to have a good plan in place, and it's just so interesting to see where the sport is going.
I couldn't agree with you more because I think that until we had the Norwegians do what they did in 2022, we had Christian literally, go from winning the Olympics, won the WTCS Grand Final, wins, goes and wins St. George, does sub 7. Like I think we saw the rule book through it because traditionally triathlon has had this path, short course when you're younger. As you start to get older, transition to the longer stuff. And yeah, that is not the case. Not only are we no longer just seeing athletes sort of migrate from short course to long course, we're seeing athletes skip short course altogether, or not that they skip, are simply not good enough to compete at the short course, but have had incredible success at the long course. Now, it is interesting here because you're right. Like you have been through it, and again, people know I work with you. I know you quite well, and I've sort of been on the inside. And you are a guy that your introduction to middle distance hasn't gone that well. Like I've picked up on myself that there has been always a certain hesitancy or like not fear's not the right word, but a reluctance to do it. And then you have that race like you had in Bahrain at the end of last year, and I feel like that has really positively switched I don't know whether your confidence or you suddenly go, no, I actually know how to do this now. Like that's like, what was that? Like, talk me through that. Have I hit the mark a little bit? Like, am I close to the money?
Yeah, no, you're hitting the mark 100% because it's all about confidence. And like looking at some of my stats on the middle distance, it's not too bad. I mean, I got a podium. I think it was a 2020. I think it was the East London 70.3. I got a third place. I got a second place in Bahrain. So I mean, two podiums in 70.3 already is, I don't know, it's okay.
It's not bad.
But I was, and I think I've only done about four. So I mean, but yeah, it's basically in the beginning I was always just scared of the distance, and I think that's what really got me is I was never really sure, how I'd cope with a 90K bike, running 21 off that. I was always just preparing for a 10K run at most, off a 40K bike, and I never really got the chance to really prepare for like a 70.3 race or a middle distance race. So when I did do it, it was like, I'd be completely shattered and blown afterwards. Like sometimes, although when I got that third place in East London, I thought I wasn't even going to be able to run because that's just how shattered my legs were already on the bike. But, I managed to get through and I got through the 21K run and a third place. I mean, I can't complain with that. Like, obviously, it wasn't a super deep field, but I was still competing against Matt Troutman and Bradley Weiss. They're still very high, respectable athletes. And then, yeah, like coming into Bahrain, I actually put in a very, good mini block of work about 4 weeks after the Super League season. And I really got into that TT mode, put in a little bit more distance, got a bit more strength into my legs. And that really came through in the race. And, that 4 weeks plus that race week, I was just feeling so good. And I was in a good place. And I think having a good race, feeling in control, feeling strong throughout the bike, having that energy and feeling strong, hitting the run, getting through the run, and still feeling strong at the end, like that was a huge confidence boost for me. And, since that race, like I've just felt super excited to start getting into the 70.3s a bit more now. I just feel like I'm in a good space right now. Like I think the confidence is there and the strength and maturity is there as well. And I just have to kind of keep that momentum rolling while I have that. And one thing to add is I think the bike does play a big part in it. And with your work, like we've worked on Specialized and we've got that TT bike and, that is just next level from where I'm coming from. And I can feel the effects that the bike is a lot easier than what it was. So a little bit the bike was holding me back. But that's also part of the excitement is that I know that I'm on the same level as all the other guys. So, there's nothing really holding me back now. And I recently just had a very small local race on the weekend. Full in training, the fatigue levels are pretty high. And yeah, it was Olympic distance race, but I did that on a TT bike and I just felt so strong throughout the whole 40K. And I think I averaged super hard course at an altitude above 1,000 meters. And yeah, I averaged about 44 Ks an hour. So, that was pretty good for me, feeling strong, like I could still push on. And it was a pretty good time. Like I ran the whole course over 1 hour 49. So, it's respectable. In early days of training, feeling tired, fatigued. So, I just feel like I'm ready to take on the middle distance.
Which I love to hear. But and you've already like touched on so many things that I want to go into deeper. And I think the place that the thing I really wanted to talk to you about, because I don't think it's really like, again, I see behind the curtains about what's going on, and you touched on confidence, and I don't think a lot of people who listen will understand just what a fucking shit time you have been through the last few years. Like it is to me, like it is so impressive to see the journey that you've made through the last years, because it has been a rough time, mate. Like, and again, I'll try to do it like the cliff notes, but we're talking the ankle injury in Tokyo, and then you go through the whole you have surgery that we have to sort of keep under wraps, and then you go through the whole rehab, and you get back, and you're about to make your debut at Super League, and then you crash your bike and you break your elbow, and then that's a whole thing, and then like it has been a journey. And then we see last year where you come back, you get a world title at the Arena Games, and then you come fourth overall at Super League, and then you have that Bahrain race. Like you talk about the confidence, but you obviously have been an athlete. And again, it is, I think, that the biggest difference that people don't necessarily understand between what it takes to be one of the best in the world and a flog on the weekend like myself. But how do you continue to push? And again, I should add, the first ride on your TT bike, you did crash again and destroyed the bike, and we had to get you another one. And again, that didn't stop you. You still kept. So I'm so fascinated, and I mean, again, I have some insight, but I know that the people listening, I'm sure, will want to know, like, what kept you going, mate? Like, how was it that you just didn't give up?
I love the sport, mate. I love competing. I think that's what gets me up every morning. Um, I've been in it a long time. I think it's my 10th year being professional. And, like I kind of went down almost out at a time where I felt like I was on top of the world. And I just felt like I wasn't done yet. I had so much more to prove to myself. Um, and I just felt like I needed to get back out there. In the beginning days with the whole ankle break at the Tokyo Olympics, I didn't realize how bad it was at that time. And I didn't realize how long it would actually take me to get back to the top. I just thought, typical break, 4 to 8 weeks, it will heal. And, we ended up having 6 months where it started becoming a non-union, so it stopped healing. Then we had to intervene with surgery. And the surgery after that, it took another 6 months just to get back to running. So that was a whole year. And then I thought, once I'm running, okay, well, I should just bounce right back into fitness. But what I didn't realize is that I've been out of running for an entire year. And that's long. You don't realize how much you actually lose fitness, the whole conditioning of running, and the whole kind of like race fitness that you also lose. And I thought I'd just like kind of bounce back into racing. I'll just slot right back into place, but it wasn't as easy as that. It took a lot of like hard lessons in racing just to learn the game again, get my race fitness, get my strength up, get some sort of confidence that I can still run. Because the whole of last year was still like, I've been questioning myself, can I still do this? Can I still run? Will I be able to, get back up to speed with the best guys in the world? Because to be fair, I was only running about 40 to 50K per week the whole of last year. I mean, some weeks were less, some weeks I get to about 50, 55Ks and like the wheels fall off. So it was incredibly hard, like to try and get through all that racing on 40, 50Ks of running per week, with a lot of soreness, with a lot of niggles, with the doubts that is my ankle ever going to get better? But it did, it just takes some time. You just need to work through the motions. I wouldn't say every week, but every month, if you take a snapshot of every month and you look back where you are now, it was always slightly better. And it took 12, 13, 14 of those months to get to where I was in Bahrain. So, I mean, and I think it was after the Super League season where things really clicked in, and I started the preparation for the Bahrain 70.3. And that's when I really started having consistent running, getting in the mileage. I started hitting about 70 Ks per week of running, and I was feeling good. The wheels are not falling off. So I think that's the other reason why Bahrain was so good to me and why I felt so strong, is finally something clicked, something was working, and I was able to get consistency in training. And yeah, and I think it's just the drive of the sport that kind of gets me up every morning. I still want to, at the Tokyo Olympics when I broke the ankle, there was a silver lining with the kind of Franzel letting me know that she's pregnant and we're going to have our first newborn. So, that also kind of changed my perspective on things. And it wasn't just about me. It was also, I want to be a role model for my daughter. I want her to look up to me, and I want to kind of show her what I do, and show that I can be the best in the world, and kind of like inspire her to also take part in sport or whatever she wants to.
you've talked, and again, I was kind of going to ask, but I think you sort of answered it because, as we said at the start, you've won Olympic medals, you've won Commonwealth Game medals, you've won WTCS Grand Finals, but then you've had this injury, and again, not only did all that stuff happen, like you finished the Super League series, and we did not, and you had a chest condition as well. Like it has been the universe constantly trying to throw things at you to stop you from. So, like, because yeah, you didn't win the race in Bahrain, but again, I think to me it was a win. Just when we consider everything that happened, like how much, because you're talking obviously about the confidence and the momentum and stuff, but like, is it like a weight? Was it a weight? Like, was it relief, or was it like what was that emotion of going? Not only I'm running well again, I'm back running, but I can also do this middle distance stuff. Like, what was that emotion like at the end of the race? Like, I'm always so curious about what goes through an athlete's head after. Like, and I'm talking like you finished that race. Like, what's the emotions? What's the state like? What are you thinking? What's going through your head?
Yeah, I mean, you just touched on, the little things that I've gone through, and, and I didn't even get a chance to just touch on that, is how many things I've actually been through. Like you talked about the chest issue that I've had through the second half of Super League season. The elbow break through that put me out of the previous Super League season.
The wrist.
Like,
I forgot the
there's a
wrist
lot
as
of
well.
things that you
There's,
just
there's so many.
the wrist. I broke the wrist before.
I know, like
Yeah, so
it's actually kind of like
there's a lot
it's
happening.
almost funny. Like it's honestly like a sketch show, right? It's just like this poor athlete just trying to get back, and every time something goes, like it's like one of those punch dummies where you're punching at it.
Oh yeah.
You couldn't write this stuff, mate. Like you actually couldn't. The amount of things that have happened. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but you're right. So much has
Yeah.
come up.
No. You just gotta attach a bungee rope to yourself and just bounce right back. Just think of it like that. But yeah, I mean, I think every athlete has their challenges, and it's how you get over them is what makes you. So as long as you just stay strong and you work over each challenge at a time, don't look too far in the future, just focus on the present, you'll definitely get there. But yeah, I mean, after Bahrain, like I just know that I felt super pumped. I felt really excited about what I had done. Um, just thinking back, I wasn't even sure if I'd be able to run a 21K because my longest run, I did my longest run in training leading up to that, and that was 24Ks. And that was my longest run since the whole ankle break. So, I mean, I was really not sure what I would be capable of. And to be able to run 21Ks off a 90K bike and swim, I was pretty pumped about that. And, not feeling too sore. Like I was excited. And immediately that week, I was thinking, okay, which 70.3s or middle distance races can I get into next year? Because I'm like pretty pumped about this.
No, again, I love to hear it. But like that's the thing, right? Is if we look at the landscape at the moment in triathlon, there's so much doing in middle distance. Like it's an interesting time for the sport because we have, there's like lots of weird things going on behind the scene. But like from an actual race point of view, I don't think there's ever been more options for athletes in the history of the sport, to be honest. You've got the Olympics coming up this year. We've got we've got the Super League series that's come. We've got the PTO series that's about to be launched with they've got a world title on the line. We've got the new Ironman Pro series, which covers both Ironman and 70.3. We've got Challenge doing anything like there's so many races there's so many opportunities for athletes to like be successful or go out there and not only just do a race the best consistently. Like, how motivating is that for you? Like, how do you feel about this opportunity?
Oh, it's so tempting. It's like I just want to race everything because there's so much on the line, but at the same time, you have to carefully plan what you do because you want to execute your race as well.
Yep.
I mean, the choices between short course, Super League, World Series, Olympics, 70.3, PTO, challenge, like it's endless. I mean, if you plan your season right, like you can really do well and you can make a lot of money. Like when I started racing, the only money that I really brought in was from the World Series, and that's not a lot. Like looking back at when I started with the sport, how much there was on offer, and looking at the sport now, how much there's on offer, there's so much more. And I think it's great for the athletes because it's going to make the sport more competitive. It's going to make more athletes getting involved in different parts of the sport. So it'll become more competitive. The longer distance will become more faster and competitive. The shorter distance will become super fast and competitive. So, I mean, it's just good for the sport all around.
Do you think, and again, you have a unique perspective on this because you have got an Olympic medal, again, something that not many people can say. Do you feel like, because, and again, I know I go on like a bit of a cracked record here, but World Triathlon of everybody seems to be the least reactive. We see Super League doing so much to try to, make their broadcast more dynamic. They're trying new things. They're doing all these things. You've got the PTO. We've got even Ironman. Like everybody seems to be trying to lift the game. And then you've got World Triathlon just like, yeah, you have to pay to watch our races. It's a guy holding a camera on the back of a phone. Like the prize money hasn't increased, but we have the Olympics, so everybody sort of has to do it. Like, do you feel like, firstly, as an Olympic medalist, is the Olympics still the big carrot that it is? Or do you feel like at some point the athletes are going to go, there's enough other things out there for us to do, and we're going to get paid better, and it is prestigious, and I do want to race the best. Like, do you think it is, do you think the tides are turning, or are the Olympics the Olympics? Like, what, again, from your point of view?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's, I don't know if my perspective is different from, junior coming through the ranks, because my motivation when I was getting into the sport was to get to the Olympics, get an Olympic medal. When I grew up, I was watching the Olympics. I was watching it, all the athletes bringing home the gold medals, and like I wanted to be one of those athletes. My brother went to the Olympics before me, and everything was based around the Olympics. Like that's the biggest thing in sport. So coming home with an Olympic medal was obviously a box ticked, but it's not gold.
Mm-hmm.
I still want more out of myself from the Olympics. Like it's still big for me. It's big for South Africa as a country because triathlon is a niche sport. And if you think of it, triathlon doesn't mean a lot here in South Africa. It's more cricket, rugby, soccer, those kind of sports. And when you come home with a medal, for example, at Commonwealth Games or the Olympics, everyone recognizes you suddenly. So in terms of here in South Africa, it's a big deal. And I feel like I've done that already. And my perspective now is that I've kind of ticked those boxes. I've done what I can with that sport, and I kind of want to move on. Like I feel like there's nothing really left for me in the Olympic era. And as much as I do want to, I'm still going to Paris to try and get some redemption, come back with a medal. Gold will be the cherry on the top. But I think, yeah, there's so much more out there. There's so much more things where you can actually make money. Because with the World Triathlon, you're not going to make as much money as what you are with the middle distance or these other Super League races where you can actually make a career out of it. World Triathlon is not really going to get you there. And the competition is so tight now that there's at least 10, 15 guys at every race that has a potential to win these races. And it can go either way depending on how the race turns out. So, I mean, it's incredibly hard in that kind of racing to kind of stand out.
I definitely think that's, as I've said many times on this show, I feel like people maybe don't understand just the how tight that top end is at a World Triathlon event, because we talk about races where there's seconds, in it. And we have obviously the Paris Olympics in a matter of months coming up. You got the chance to do some of the course. You had not the best day at the test event last year, where again I was quite upset to see you standing on the side of the course on the broadcast. But what do you think about this Paris race? Like, what do you think about the course? What do you think about, like, where we are? It's January. The race is in, I believe, late July. What do you think about the Paris race? Like, what is your expectations for how that race is going to unfold?
Very interesting. Like the swim it's all about position in the swim because there's a flow in the river. You're going to go down the river with the flow, and then you're going to turn around against the flow. And that kind of throws things out the box a little bit. So if you're out of position, if you're on the outside, you're going to get caught out coming around, and you're going to have an extra 5 meters going against the flow, apart from the athletes who are on the inside. So it's just going to be a lot harder if you're out of position coming around that first buoy. And I got caught out at the test event with that, and hopefully I'll be able to fix that this year. But the cycle course is definitely fast. I think it will come together. It's going to be a run race in Paris, I would say. The cobbles was the big talk, but it wasn't that bad. It was kind of like something different, which is cool. You're going to have to look at your tire setup, your PSI setup. But yeah, as much as I thought I got it all right, I got a puncture on the second lap of the bike, which I assume was on one of the corners of on cobblestone sections, and it kind of slit on the sidewall of my tire. So I mean, that was just unexpected. Brand new tire, working perfectly, and got a rear wheel puncture. So I mean, hopefully that won't happen in the Olympics this year.
It won't
because
happen.
that will be really
It won't happen. It won't
devastating.
happen.
Yeah. So I mean, and then the run, yeah, I mean, it looks like it's just going to come down to a fast run, and I would say if you can run sub 29, I think that's going to get you a medal. So yeah, working on the run, but I think they've changed the course slightly. I'm not exactly sure how, but they've changed it slightly from the test event. So I mean, that should change things up as well.
I mean, look, not to give away all the secrets, but like because everybody I talk to, this is the theme. It's going to be a run race. It's a run race. The course is not technical enough to let a group get away. The swim is luck of the draw because, as you said, there's the current and your position depends. But do you think that, like, is that it? Or as one of the strongest swimmers in the field, is there something that can be done? Like, is there another path to gold in Tokyo, Paris, other than a fast run? Like, is there a universe in which, because again, let's not forget, it's also not like the Olympics aren't the best. It's not the best field all year because you've got only a certain number of athletes from each country. So we're not going to have like a lot of that real swim power. They're not necessarily going to be there. Like we're going to probably see a lot more runners or bike runners probably who are going to be featuring at this event rather than the swimmers. Like, do you see an alternative path to success? Is there something else that can be done by an athlete like yourself who is able to swim the way you swim? Like, is it or not? Or is it just like, nah, it's a run race. We just all need to focus on the run?
Well, I mean, you always want to have the fastest run anyway, so you prepare for the best runner. But my experience from past Olympics and games is that yes, the fields are slightly diluted. You get little, like you find little gaps between the fields. So it's not like 50 of the best. You're going to get maybe you can sometimes get the top 100 or the top 110 into the 55. So I mean, that's like already it's half diluted. So you're going to get those little bit of gaps, but then you're going to have the tactics of the federation. So you'll have like Great Britain, you'll have USA, France, who have domestiques, and that helps a breakaway get away.
Yep.
You don't necessarily get domestiques to bring the chase pack together. I think it works a lot better for the breakaway to stay away. And that's where I kind of snuck in with Rio is the Brownlees, but there wasn't actually domestiques in Rio. It was just a good group kind of got away, but I think it happened like that in London, where there was a domestique for Great Britain. But in Paris, I think the Frenchies are going to really try and put something up their sleeves, probably get a breakaway because all their athletes are pretty good swimmers, and they will definitely want to try to keep the fast runners away, and they're going to try and bring home the medal on home soil. So I mean, as a fast swimmer, I'll always try and capitalize on those kind of tactics that get played. And if you're at the pointy end of the race, your chances of getting a medal are way higher than in the chase back. So my goal is just to stay up towards the front, work with them if they can. If it all comes together, you've got to back yourself as a runner. So I mean, yeah, I mean, it's always interesting with the Olympics. There's always these tactics and a lot of intimidation kind of going around, and you're really not sure like who's going to do what, or who's going to be strong, or
who's not going to
really
be
going to put
injured?
the power down on the bike to stay away, or who's not.
Yeah,
exactly. Like that's what I found in Tokyo is that half the field is injured when they go to the Olympics, myself included. So if you get there healthy, fit, and ready to race, you got a better chance of winning a medal than being injured. So
Look, I'm not going to ask you to comment on what your predictions are for the men's race, but I am going to turn our attention to the women's race a little bit because I think you probably can be a bit more free to discuss. But what do you think about the women's race? Who are you expecting to pick up some medals in Paris for the women this year?
It's going to be quite interesting. If Georgia can get herself pretty fit, she'll really be in the mix. We got Beth Potter, we got Cassandra. Um, I think there was a youngster from Italy that started coming through. I can't
Yeah,
remember the name, but
I know who you're talking about. The really good swimmer. What's her name?
yeah,
I keep thinking it's not Gina Serena. She's an American. Anyway, yes, the Italian girl. I know who you're talking about. Gets going to annoy me actually. Keep talking.
so um, yeah, I think it's gonna come. I think Cassandra is gonna have that home soil advantage, and I think she's really gonna be one to watch for the gold medal. I think being a good swimmer and being a super strong runner.
I think that's a pretty good shout, to be honest, mate. I think Cassandra's going to be pretty good to, I'm very
Yeah.
excited to see Cassandra out there. Now, the other thing that has happened recently in triathlon is, as we sort of touched on a little while ago, there's suddenly all these options for athletes. We have, in particular, the main two probably longer distance things that are happening this year is the PTO series, which is being announced next week. We know that they're going to come out with. I've got to actually heard some good stuff about who's got contracts and who hasn't, but that will be announced next week. But we also then have the Ironman Pro Series, and what we've seen, and again, which is very interesting to me, is we're actually starting to see some shots fired between the PTO and the Ironman, where we have the PTO have confirmed a women's race the weekend after the Ironman World Championships, and that this week they have confirmed a men's race the weekend before Kona, the Ironman World Championship. Do you think that it is because the other thing we've heard is that there's some athletes who are going to try to do both the PTO series and the Ironman series this year. Now, as an athlete who has sort of pushed it and gotten injured at the big event in Tokyo and things like that, do you think that this not greed's not the right word, but like your eyes are too big sort of approach where that you've got these guys think I'm going to do it all. I want to try to win everything. Are we going to see? Are we going to see athletes successfully be able to do everything, or do you think we're going to see more athletes get injured, or do you think we're going to see athletes who are actually going to have to commit to one or the other? Like, what do you think? Not as a participant, obviously, but like as an outside observer who is somewhat familiar with the dynamics and the requirements of racing at that level. What do you see for this year for some of those athletes?
Look, I think we're really going to see. I don't know. I think if you get some athletes that are trying to take on everything, they going to bite off a bit more than they can chew. They never really get. They might maybe do well in one or two of the races, but it's going to catch them towards the end of the year. And I think it's all about planning. I think you got to really put your eggs into one basket. Don't spread them all around because you're really not going to get what you're looking for. And I think if you want to really stand out, you want to have a good performance, and you're not going to have a good performance at every single one of these races. So, yeah, I mean, I think because there's so much depth in middle distance right now, I think we're going to see a lot more standout performances and a few more. Like it's not going to be the regulars that are standing out. There's going to be a few more that get their limelight and get to stand out from the rest. So I mean, I think if you're going to commit to all of them, your performances are not going to be where you want them, and it's going to be subpar. And yeah, I think injury is really high risk because you're going to be trying to push hard while doing all this racing. Like it's really not good for the body, and it's going to take its toll, not maybe this year, but next year.
Do you think we are going to, because as we sort of said, it feels like there's so much happening at the moment, right? And again, maybe just because I've sort of been around the sport as long as I have, but it always feels like when there's so much of something, it normally precedes like a bit of a bubble, maybe where the bubble will burst at some point. Do you get concerned that maybe we are in a bubble right now, and that maybe we are actually in some way harming the longevity? Like, is there such thing as too much of a good thing?
Oh, you know what the saying goes, if it's too good to be true, it never is. But oh yeah, I think you just got to make the most of it right now, and that's what I'm really trying to do. I'm trying to squeeze in Super League Olympics, 70.3. But I mean, we spoke about this, and for me, it's about setting up next year after the Olympics. And yes, I think the 70.3 is pretty good. Middle distance is good in terms of, first of all, motivation, building some base in the beginning of the year, and then hit the Olympics, hit some Super League with some good speed, and then build back up for some 70.3 later this year for 70.3 Worlds. So yeah, I mean, I'm also trying to squeeze as much out of it as I can with this year, but I mean, I'm not racing 10 middle distance races. I'm doing more like short races. So I mean, you bounce back from those really quickly. It's more like doing an effort and training kind of thing. So the chances of injury for me are a little bit less. The mileage is not excessive, but yes, we are pushing at high speeds and high intensity. So the risk of injury is like relative, but I think it's slightly lower because you can recover a lot faster from the shorter races than the longer ones.
Do you think there's a pathway to triathlon being a major broadcast sport? Like, this is something that has been a big part of lots of people's decision making recently. In particular, I think the PTO and Super League who really are trying to drive triathlon to a model that is broadcastable. Do you think it is possible?
Yeah, I think it is possible. I think we're definitely making waves in the way we are reaching out to the masses out in the world, and getting triathlon out and into a main media platform. So I mean, PTO, Super League are really doing making good changes in the sport. And I noticed that from when I compete in like world triathlon races, like no one really sees that. If I compete in Super League, I come back home, everyone's like, "Oh, you had such a great race in Super League." Like they talk about the Super League because it's on TV, and then you race like PTO, people watch that. And funny enough, the arena games from Super League, like people were talking about me last year from the arena games still throughout the entire year because they saw me on TV racing. So it makes a big difference if you get out in the right platforms and channels. Like it makes a bigger difference. So for me, racing arena games was way bigger than racing world triathlon last year.
But
Funny enough.
This brings back to my thing again that I asked you about earlier, though, and this is where I wonder almost my frustration is because you're not the only person that said this. Like I hear this a lot, and I don't understand, like, what is it going to take for World Triathlon in particular to hear this and act on it? Because I worry and I believe that they feel like we have the Olympics, that's enough. That will, like, we have these athletes by the neck because they want to do the Olympics, they have to do World Triathlon. Like, why won't they react to this movement of trying to make the product more broadcastable? Like, what is their hesitation? Is it because they have the Olympics? Like, what does it going to take to get them to go, we need, like, this is not working, we need to fix it?
Yeah. And it's scary because the amount of reach that they actually get. So there were like a few like young athletes asked the question, what do they want to do what do they want to do in sport? What do they want to do in triathlon? And the general answer in sport is like, you want to go to the Olympics, you want to be the best there. But the answer that we got back from these youngsters were, I want to race Super League. It's just because they see it and they can relate to it because they watch it. Like they're not watching the World Triathlon. I mean, the Olympics is every 4 years. You forget about it. Like you need to be in front of people's faces. You need to be on TV. You need to be easily accessible. And if you get that right, you'll grow whatever you're trying to achieve.
Do you think then we need more cooperation? Because one of the things as well, like I've talked about the fact that we have all these opportunities, but there's not a lot of collaboration. There is some, like World Triathlon is kind of working with the PTO on that middle distance series, and Super League kind of works around the World Triathlon series, and Ironman just does what Ironman does. But like, there a pathway forward collaboration? Is it that we want to see World Triathlon picks the races and puts them on Super League broadcasts, or World Triathlon goes to Super League? We don't need your short shoots and we don't need this, but we need a really exciting Olympic distance race in Leeds. Like, do you think that's a way they could, and do you think that could ever happen?
I don't know if it will ever happen, but I think we can all learn from each other. Like everyone's got something good about what they're doing, and yeah, I mean, I think World Triathlon can really step up the game with the way that they get their races out onto televisions around the world, and they can learn that from Super League. They can learn it from PTO. Take a note out of their book. So I mean, it's yeah, but at the same time, like there's also this fierce competition that they want their athletes racing their series or their competitions. They don't want to like, so they kind of, yeah, I mean, it's good that they work around it, that at least I can race World Series and Super League. But it does become incredibly tough because it's like almost every weekend that you're going to be racing. So it does make it tough.
Let's play a hypothetical game then. Let's say that in some parallel universe, slide into a moment, the Olympic IOC goes to World Triathlon. We're sick of you. We've had enough. We've had a gut full of pain, $9 a month for Triathlon Live. Super League Triathlon, in order for athletes to qualify for the Olympics, they need to do the Super League series. And then you earn your points and you qualify for the Olympics through Super League. How does that change the game? Does that change the game? Or do you think that like this is what and I don't know the answer. And again, I'm not here to, I am very critical of World Triathlon, but like, I just is the Olympics the root cause of the problem? Is it, in fact, the thing that is holding the sport back in a lot of ways, do you think?
It does in a way, actually. You know, when I think about it, you know, you have to spend 2 years traveling around, have to race these races and accumulate points to race at the Olympics. So it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of money, especially from a federation where you get nothing. You have to pay it out of your own pocket to get to the Olympics. So I mean, it's a huge investment where you get nothing back unless you win a gold medal. So I mean, you work your butt off for 4 years, you pay out of your pocket to try and get there, and you come home with an injury. Like you spend all this investment into it, and you come home with nothing. So, it does hold the sport back. I would say it holds a lot of athletes back. And I think if you just open up to different opportunities, you can really expand your brand and get better in the sport, and make a better career out of it.
Well, again, you sort of did touch on the fact that you're excited to sort of make this transition in the coming years, which again, I'm personally really excited about. But the other thing you've talked a lot about is your fact you're a very motivated guy and you love to race. And we've talked a lot about you. And what I'm also very curious to find out is what are the performances or the athletes or the people that you race against or that you see that have inspired you, or what, like who in the last, say, 18 months to 2 years has done something in the sport, not yourself, and you've just been like, yeah, wow, that really motivates me to get out the door and do more. Like who is that person? What is that performance? Like that's something I'm curious about. Who are you paying attention to and you going, yeah, okay, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, there's there's a few guys that are really stepped out and performing really well that I'm like, wow, that's really good to see where they've come from. And Hayden Wild, to see where he's come from. Like, I mean, I smoked his ass in the Super Leagues like just a few years ago, and now he's smoking everyone asses, World Triathlon, middle distance, like everywhere. So I mean, that's inspiring to see how someone really steps up the game. So I mean, he makes me push hard, and because I once beat him and I want to beat him again. But it's guys like that that really inspire me to be better. Leo Berger, he's been really doing well for himself, and like he's inspired me as well. He's really become one to look out for. He's super competitive and he's super strong and hard to beat now these days. Then you get, I mean, for example, who's had like a similar situation that what I've had and getting back to the top is Martin van Riel and Jan Frodeno. Martin also had a big ankle injury, and he stepped up and he beat me in Bahrain. So I mean, big ups to him. That's super inspiring to me to see someone also go through some hard challenges and still manages to get back to the top. And Jan Frodeno, at his age, greatest of all time. Like, everyone, I think, kind of wrote him off, but he came home with a PTO win last year, and that's inspiring. So it's these guys that really show what is possible in the sport. That it's never over until you say it's over.
It's kind of similar, I suppose, but maybe it's not. Maybe it comes from a place of anger. I'm not sure, but who's the athlete you really want to race and you really want to beat? Like, who's the person that you just like, I really want to get out there and I really want to, whoop your ass a little bit. Like, who's that person for you? Who's the one that, yeah, like when you're not motivated, when you're just like, fuck, when you need that person to be the thing that forces you to do the extra rep or push that little bit harder, who's that person for you?
Oh, for a while, it's been Christian since Tokyo Olympics. But funny enough, like while I was still in World Triathlon, I always had this, like I never really raced Gianfredino. Like I stepped into the World Triathlon when he was kind of stepping out and he became like the best. And I always wanted to race the best. He, and I think the last couple of years we were both injured and he's now retired, but I really wanted to give it a good go and really race him in a middle distance or something, in a good race where we could really battle it out. And unfortunately, it didn't happen. But yeah, I mean, that was someone that I really wanted to race and try and beat.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very good answer. Um, the last thing I sort of want to touch on, just because she is the yin to your yang, the other side of the coin, the ever-present presence that is in your life, and that is your wife, Franzel. We obviously, Fran, you're married to, and I know Fran very well too. And I feel like I would probably get my ass kicked if I didn't bring her up at least at some point in this interview. But the fact is, you have been through an incredibly tough time. Like, what has it meant to you to have somebody like Frenzel in your life? Literally holding you together at points. Like, what does that support mean like been like for you? And what does it mean to you?
Yeah, I'm incredibly lucky to have Frenzel. She's been the pillar of support that I needed, especially through the last 3 years, with injury. We got together when I was, no one. I was wearing sneakers with jeans kind of person with braces and really looking awful when I went out to dinner. So she really put like some goodness into me. She kind of like got me out of my shell a little bit because I used to be like a very introvert, very kept to myself, very shy to talk, and she really helped me, get out of that shell. And so she's been the better half of me. She's really made me a better person. But like we went through a tough time with that whole injury. It was tough on both of us. It started with the ankle break. She was there for me, and then she was also pregnant with our newborn, and we went through this entire ordeal with her being pregnant, and it was all about me. It was never really about her. And for her to be strong for me every day, supporting me while she's growing a baby, she's a superwoman. She's really she's a super mom, and like I have to like I wouldn't have been able to do it without her. Put it that way. She was always there. She was like it was all about me, and she made me her priority. So yeah, she's a super loving, kind person. She's really like the opposite of me. So I think that's why we really attract and we get along really well. And yeah, I mean, I just love her company. At the end of the day, she's my best friend. And when I have something to tell, something to say, like I always go to her and I talk to her about it. And it's the same with her. And I think that's what a relationship needs is we tell each other everything. We have no secrets and we're like we're best friends. We don't see it as like, I mean, yes, we are married and we have a daughter, but it's at the end of the day, we're like best friends.
Now, I am going to put this out there just because she did suggest this. Tell me she was asking whether you were going to do this interview clothed or nude when I told you that it was in fact a video. Now, did you follow the advice and go nude from the bottom down, or are you fully dressed?
No, I've got clothes on. That's just a typical Frenzel. Like, she's always out there making.
Oh, mate, the messages she sends me when you're racing make me laugh every single. And sometimes I'm like, Fran, that's a little too much. But you're right. She is a superwoman, and again, I think
like here's a line. She always goes over and beyond.
Yes.
It's fun to like be around her.
Yes, she certainly does that. She certainly does. Look, Henry, thank you so much for joining us, mate. It is again, I think that you are such a powerhouse of the sport, and obviously I work with you, and I'm very proud to work with you. I'm extremely proud to see everything you've been through the last few years, and just the no giving up attitude like motivates me, mate. And I just wanted to say that to you because you talked about the things that motivate you. I've been through something similar with injuries and stuff. I've had this foot thing, and you continuing to never give up motivates me to not give up. And thank you for joining us, mate. If people want to find you on social media, where do they go? Where can they follow along your journey?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Really appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, I'm mostly on Instagram. I think that's the best place to be. It's just at Henri Schoeman. But yeah, really looking forward to the year. I've got big goals, and yeah, just want to keep improving and get back to the real top of the sport. So yeah, look forward to doing that, and follow me on Instagram where I post a few reels of me running, sweating, and cycling. So hope you enjoy that kind of stuff.
Yeah, if you want to get better at swimming, follow Henri Schoeman. We guarantee you'll improve by 10 seconds per 100. There you go. That's the talking triathlon guarantee. Henry, mate.
There you go.
Thank you so much. Really great to chat.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Cheers.
And we are back.
Great work. Great interview. Henry's a really fascinating guy because, he's had Olympic success and then he had some quite serious injuries that he's had to go away and deal with and treat and rehab. And it wasn't looking particularly good for a while. It was looking like the road back was going to be really hard. Then he bounced back into Super League and found some success again. He came back to a level that, if I'm honest, I wasn't expecting. And it was really good to see.
It's funny because I did talk to him about this. And again, I don't know if I did the best job of sort of explaining the timeline on the interview because there's things that even I forgot about. But if you go back to, leading into the Tokyo Olympics, he's, sort of on top of the world, crushing things, breaks his ankle, recovers from that, well, has to have surgery, then has to recover from that surgery, gets back, starts racing, gets into Super League, goes to race Super League, week before Super League, crashes his bike, breaks his elbow, has to skip Super League, comes back. Then last year gets back, does the arena games, wins the arena games, starts to do some more triathlon events, goes okay, gets towards Super League, breaks, or was it just after, breaks his wrist, then also gets this weird chest infection. Like it's just been this, it's like, I think I said in the episode, like, it's almost a comedy sketch, right? This poor athlete trying to get back to their best and just things keep happening. And I think that is, it's a story that's not told enough. And it's not just a Henri Schoeman thing. Like we see, every time it's something sensational, like a car crash or something like that, everybody seems to fucking flock and get so excited about it. Where the reality is there's a lot of athletes in our sport who deal with things that are a lot more mundane, but equally as serious and equally as like.
I can attest to quite how savage the rehab from a broken ankle is. It's brutal and it takes ages and it's slow. And then after you've rehabbed that, you'll find that your kinetic chain up your body is distorted and other little injuries will come out because the ankle is that interface between the ground and your body is, the first thing which sends that movement up through your body and things start to react to it. It's a bad journey, that one.
I think again, and like, obviously I work with Henry. I think looking at the Henri Schoeman last couple of years really opened my eyes to just how cruel sport is as well. Like, sport has a very short memory. And this isn't a Henry thing. Look at any athlete. You're only really as good as your last sort of result and how quick people are to say, oh, you're done, you're dismissed, you're gone, or that. Forget, yeah. Like, it's alarming. And not just that, even when you're having relative success, there are so many athletes. I mean, I've had meetings. I can't actually explain how many athletes I've had reaching out to me lately about representation stuff. And it's like, no, it's not that, it's just the sport at the moment. And it is just that sport is so cruel. And there is this pressure that athletes have to deal with all the time of, knowing that if they go a couple of months without a performance, people start to like forget them. It is like I see so many comments and stuff being like, oh, well, I wish I could just quit my job and train full time. Fuck that. Like I actually can't. I honestly do not think I could. I have any interest in doing it, to be honest. But again, I think that's the Henri Schoeman story is one. Like he is yeah, amazing athlete, a guy who inspires me so much. And I think the thing that I'm so excited about is, and again, knowing Henry, he didn't. I actually think he kind of was a bit unhappy that I brought this up on the podcast on the interview, to be honest. But like, I know that he's had some, I guess, hesitancy or not fear is not the right, or maybe fear, but reluctance to really commit to the middle distance because he's had some attempts and hasn't gone so well. But that Bahrain race at the end of last year really sort of solidified, oh shit, I can do this. And we know that with athletes, that confidence is so important. And the fact that he now knows he can do well at 70.3, I think is exciting because, I think I was actually talking to Javier Gomez's agent this week, and his name's Javier too, really nice guy. And we were talking about Henry, and I said
Yeah, he's a very nice chap.
those two athletes to me are alarmingly very similar. Like they're very similar style, not just actually as athletes, but their personality and everything. And I know that Javier has also had an extremely long road to, return from injury, and he's back. We're going to see him doing some big races this year. Like this group of athletes, I think, yeah, it's exciting. I like that, and like I said, I'm glad that we were able to have that chat with Henry because he is sort of quite reserved and quiet, and I think more people should hear his story and get to know him a bit better. So excited to bring that one.
Yeah, totally. Really good interview. Fascinating guy to talk to, and long may his recovery continue and his no more injuries for a while, mate. Come on.
Please,
Yeah,
no more injuries. But that's it, mate. Like I said, it's a good long interview, so we're pretty much done this week. As we said, next week we're going to do the news. We're going to talk about obviously you got that little mini interview with Kevin. It's about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, I think.
Yeah, 20 minutes odd.
But I have a lot to say about this because
So do I. And we're also doing the bonus episode early next week, aren't we? So that'll be out, and we'll have our very, very unfiltered views on what's happening with the PTO and Malibu and all that.
Well, again, that's the thing, right? Just for spoilers for those who don't know, I didn't realize this, but the PTO backed the guy because we spoke about this a few weeks ago, right? Where the person who Super League bought the race series off has gone back with a new race and has basically taken the license back. Yeah, PTO is backing him, and it's just like I was saying to you before we hit record, mate. Like, it's just so typically triathlon that it's almost a cliche, and I'm fucking sick to death of it. Like I'm
that's
really
why I reached out to Kevin because he's
sick
the
of
guy
it.
that broke that story, and I wanted to get him on to understand the journey he'd been on to find out all that information and understand it and look into it and get his insight into that.
I've been listening to a lot of. We're meant to wrap up. Who cares? I've been listening to a lot of like investigative podcasts. I actually really listened to a good one called Ghost Story this week or yesterday when I was writing. But I still have in the back of my mind. I'd love to do a serial style podcast, which is all about whatever happened to the Vespa triathlon team. Like I still think I still think there's a story there because that thing came guns blazing and just fizzled out. And
I forget about that. I forget it existed.
and
It
nobody
didn't
talks
exist.
about.
I forget. Yeah, nobody ever worried. Nobody ever
But they
thinks about
had
it.
they had Gustav Eden, they had like Lucy Charles, they had Flora Duffy was racing. I think she won the grand final, didn't she, with the logo on her like it's ridiculous. And then the thing it was a scam. And nobody nobody talks about it. Like
No.
I'd love to do like one of those, real like 8 episode series where you interview people and you've got to like change the voice of some athletes because they don't want to be identified.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that'd be, I'd love to do that. Anyway, enough of that. Maybe if you do like that, maybe if we get enough patrons on patreon.com/talking triathlon, I will make that a mini goal or something. But yeah, that's where you go. We'll do the bonus episode next week. We'll be back next week to talk about news. James, if people want to find out other things about talking triathlon, where do they need to go?
If you want to support the show, jump on at patreon.com/talking triathlon. If you want to follow Tim, it's at tford14 on Instagram, and I'm bale.james85 on Instagram. Find us across all social networks at Talking Triathlon on Instagram, at Talk Triathlon on Twitter. If you join the Patreon group, you'll get access to the monthly bonus episode, which we're recording next week and is going to be fascinating. And you get access to the social group plus the WhatsApp group, the active WhatsApp group, where everybody's always chiming in and chatting about all kinds of stuff that's going on. It keeps me entertained throughout my somewhat long and boring days sometimes.
5 hour train trips. Jimbo, thank you very much. We'll be back next week. Talk to you later.
Cheerio.